Close of play the second day of the first test between India and England in Chennai, dominated again by England, who closed on 555 for 8. So in the day they lost 3 wickets while adding 292 runs on a pitch that is slowly but surely decaying. Joe Root, of course, led the way with 218. He's the first batsman playing in his 100th test to score a double century, having his extraordinary run, 3 innings now, 3 test matches, consecutive tests on this tour, which is past 150. Brilliant innings from Ben Stokes, I must say, who scored 82, and he was the dominant force in the morning. A stand of 114 with Root, but Stokes playing particularly well, hitting the ball when it was spitting out of the rough and so on. He was caught in the deep eventually, a juggling catch by Pujara, who almost managed to drop it. Ollie Pope, a little bit slow, rusty to get going, and Root helped him along. He got to 34, partnership of 86, before he was LBW to a straight honour from Ashwin. That was a beautiful piece of bowling. Root was then LBW to Nadeem for that 218 from 377 balls. Really terrific innings, that was for sure. Buttler 30, played no stroke. Sharma, nice little bit of reverse swing there, hit his off stump. That was 527 per 7. Jofra Archer completely missed his first ball, which was the next, so Sharma was on a hat-trick. Archer bowled for a golden duck, 525 for 8, but a useful stand of 30 between Bess, who was horribly dropped on 19 by Sharma, but who ends the day on 28, and Jack Leach, who's 6 not out. Those 30 runs really valuable. They've pushed England on beyond that 550 that we think would be a really dominating score in this match. So 555 for 8. The bowling figures, well, they've been really tough for India's bowlers. 2 have blown through the 100 barrier. Ashwin, who's bowled 50 overs, mind you, 2 for 132. Shabaz Nadeem, 2 for 167. Washington Sundar is teetering there, 0 for 98 from his 26 overs. But a big shout out for Ishant Sharma, 27 overs, 7 maidens, 2 for 52. He's bowled absolutely beautifully. And Bumrah 2 for 81 from his 31. So Michael Vaughan is up there. Is going to join us for his this look back on the day. And I guess from an England perspective, Michael, that really couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah, great day. I'm sure there's many England fans out there going, oh, why didn't they get on with it? Why haven't they declared, given India 8 to 10 overs tonight? In Indian conditions, I believe that when you get the opportunity to bat first, you bat as long as you possibly can. Because at this time, days 1 and 2, the first session of day 3, it's the best time to bat, so you might as well do all your batting now, and it just allows you that hopeful kind of position that you find yourself in later on in day 3 or day 4, that you might be able to enforce the follow on. Probably not, but you might also be able to say, okay, we'll get a quick 150 runs and have a go at India on that last day. So I think they've given themselves a great chance. And also as an ex-batter, I kind of think when you're taking guard, and Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill tomorrow will take guard, realistically knowing that to win the game it's almost impossible from this position, because England have got so many runs in the first innings. So you're batting already for the best chance of to get a draw. The wind's gone out of the equation. I can't see, with the time left in the game, how India go and get 700 quickly and then bowl England out so cheaply, with them getting so many first innings runs. So that's a difficult mindset as a batter in the first innings of your game, that you really can't win the game. So mentally that's a challenge. India have wonderful batters and they're used to these conditions. It's not going to be easy for England, and Joe Root will have to manoeuvre that attack very cleverly. He's got good options. Jimmy Anderson, I've just mentioned on the social, I think he's going to be the key. He's that good at reverse swing, and he's that good on these kind of wickets now, that the old stalwart's going to be required once again to knock a couple over early, and then that reverse swing will be so important for him. And obviously the spinners and Jofra used in short, sharp bursts. You'd say to Jofra, come on, 3 or 4 over bursts, pace, that's what we need from you. And Stokes, he'll produce all sorts of tricks out of his hands. So I think England are in a great position. It's been 2 high-class test match days from the England team. Yeah,
it's going to be one of those work-hard wins if they do get there, isn't it? It's going to be hard work in the field. It's going to be hot and everything else, but you just it's one of those situations now. You've really got to dig deep and do it if you're going to win this match.
Yeah, and let's be honest, in the course of 4 matches in India, you generally don't have it all your own way all the time, and England now have got themselves in such a strong position that you feel, go on, you've got to win this game. You've got to take this opportunity. You've won the first 2 days, go and win the next 3 days, and you go 1-0 up in the series, knowing that with 3 test matches to go in India, it's not easy. India will have their time, we know that, and they probably will prepare wickets that suit them more over the course of the series than potentially this one's been a bit placid, a bit too flat in a way. It's not really allowed the Bumrahs and the Ishant Sharmas, even though Ishant Sharma's bowled brilliantly, it's not really given them that much hope. So I think England have to take this opportunity. They'll have to take all the chances in the field. They can't be like Rohit Sharma, that drop catch, Aggers. That was one of mine. Pure collector's item from Rohit Sharma. I love that. So they will have to take the chances, but they've put themselves in a fantastic position. Real quality test match cricket.
Well, you and I are going to talk about Ben Stokes in a second, but we've got to talk about stats-wise with Andy Zaltzman about Joe Root, because you take it away, Andy. I mean, it's extraordinary what he's been up to, isn't it?
It is. I mean, genuinely extraordinary. He's only the second player in Test history to score 180 or more in an innings in 3 consecutive Test matches. Only Kumar Sangakkara had done that before. 644 runs in the 3 Tests this year. Already scored more than any England batsman managed in their entire Test year in 2020. During the course of the innings, he went past Alex Stewart into the third place on England's all-time Test run scorers list, behind only Graham Gooch and Alistair Cook. England's score, 555 for 8, is their 5th highest in Asia, the highest against India in India for almost 10 years by any team. And looking at Root in Asia, he's now scored 1,842 runs at an average of 59 through his career. An extraordinary record. And looking at the players who've batted 20 or more times in Asia who are not from an Asian country, over 120 players. Only Stephen Fleming of New Zealand and Clive Lloyd have a better average than Root in Asia. So yes, an absolutely phenomenal performance from England's captain, and he's the there's almost too many stats.
There's never too many stats in your life.
there was one on consecutive 150, 3 consecutive 150s. Only the second player to do that as captain of a team, Don Bradman, was the only other one to do that. Only the second player to get 3 consecutive 150s away from home. You've got to go back to Wally Hammond for that in 1928-9, and only the third player to score 150s in 3 consecutive first innings in Tests. The other two are Pakistan, Zahir Abbas and Madhasan Azhar, in the same series against India in 1982-83, and in all just the 7th player to make 150 plus in 3 consecutive Test matches.
When you start bringing in Bradman and Hammond and things into the group, you're talking pretty big time, aren't you? I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Yes, I mean, well, Bradman is literally as good as it gets, but yes. And Hammond had some extraordinary stats. Well, they did have a big dip in his career, and we talked about Joe Root having declined a bit over the last couple of years, averaging around high 30s, just under 40, so not disastrous, but down considerably on the incredible numbers he had from 2014 to 2017. And one particular stat, the first innings centuries that had really dried up for Root, just 1 in 39 Test matches before this winter. Now 3 big first innings 3-figure scores in a row.
Love it. Andy, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch up with you tomorrow for lots more from the stats shed, I'm sure. Michael, I want to talk about Ben Stokes, because for those of us who were watching this morning, my word, it was worth it. Getting up at that early hour to watch that innings, it was just brilliant. This is a man who hasn't played Test cricket for months, of course, and has been out of the game for a while, but he's sat in his hotel room for 6 days, as the others have done too. So preparation-wise, very limited. But it's just as if he just picked his bat up and just carried on. I mean, it was an incredible innings, I thought. Yeah,
and again, we've also got to think back to the amount of times that we've kind of criticised the England team because they've not had the preparation. They've not played enough games, and all of a sudden the first Test performance isn't quite as good as we would have expected because of the preparation. It just shows you that a lot of high-level cricket is played in the mind. Yeah. It really is a kind of discipline. It's a skill in itself. The most difficult skill is to get the mind right, and I think that's what these players have done incredibly well. And Ben Stokes is a freak. He really is a wonderful cricketer, and I think if you actually look at it, Aggers, we're in a period of English cricket when you've got Joe Root. You've just heard the names that Joe's passing and being talked about around. An incredible player. You've got Alistair Cook, who's just retired, an incredible play. You've got Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson, with more wickets than ever an England pairing have ever had. Incredible bowlers. And now we've got an all-rounder like Ben Stokes. We're very fortunate in England that we're looking at Josh Buttler in one-day cricket, Owen Morgan as a captain. We've got some really high-class cricketers that we're able to watch week in, week out. You look at Ben Stokes, Joe Root. If Ben can have the year like we know he can, and he has done for the previous two, anything is possible this year for the Test match team. Yeah. If the captain continues to bat in this form and with this mindset, and then you've got Ben Stokes at number 5 who can play any innings. We've seen Ben play the Dom Sibley style innings. We've seen him do that in the past. We've seen him do what he's done today, where the ball suddenly started to spin outside his off stump to the left arm spinner, and he realised that it was just going to be a sitting duck. He's going to get out, so he tried the reverse sweep. Then he played the lap slog. He said to the young spinner, "Look, I'm just not going to allow you to just throw the ball wide of that off stump into the footholes. I'm going to ask you a few questions." That's why he's so good. Whenever there's a challenge thrown to him that's a little bit tricky and difficult, he has an answer to it, and that's what the real great players can do.
Yeah, I love the way that Stokes counter-attacks, and there he was on a bit of pressure. The ball's just starting to spit out of the rough, isn't it? And left-hander, it's always awkward. And it's his ability and confidence to, rather than he actually takes it on. He actually says, okay, that's the challenge, and to know precisely where the fielders are. I know it sounds obvious, but he just knows where they are and where they aren't. More the point, and he knows where he's got to hit the ball to hit himself out of trouble. And we saw it against Australia at Headingley, of course, famously. Well, we saw it a bit again today. He just knows where to hit it.
Yeah, well, that's what great players do. They know the gaps, they know the spaces. When you're lap slogging a spinner, the real good players can actually choose the areas where they're lap slogging to. So even if there's a fielder on the deep mid wicket boundary square, they'll just go straighter. And when you put that fielder a little bit straighter, you go a bit square of the wicket. They're just so good at doing what they do. It's obviously talent. There's obviously a lot of talent that's in the body of Ben Stokes, but it's his mind as well. His mind's so strong, and also if you go and watch England practice, there's no kind of excuse. You look at Joe Root, he practices harder than most. You look at Ben Stokes, he practices harder than most. That's why they're so good. It's not just luck and talent that they're allowed to go out there and play these shots under this amount of pressure against these kind of quality bowlers. It's the practice that they put in the nets. They're always challenging themselves in the nets to get better and improve. It's not just an easy, those underarm throw down drills where you smack it back past the coach. They're saying to the coach, come on, try and hit me on the head, or try and rip it past me outside edge. I'll try and come up with a solution to real good bowling in practice. And that's the key to improvement, is making sure that when you practice, it's tough practice. It's not easy practice. The best players really practice hard.
We'll talk to Prakash Wakankar in a second from give us an Indian perspective. But just for that, let's talk about Ollie Pope. It was a bit tough for him, wasn't it, today? I mean, it was obviously so. I mean, he hasn't played. But it was interesting that whereas a lot of the other players that we've seen who've come back and have actually found a bit of rhythm, he did struggle today. But again, Root just changed his game a bit. He'd happily let Stokes get on with it while Stokes is playing so brilliantly. I think he recognised that Pope's rhythm wasn't quite there, and he couldn't really get going. So you could feel Root almost like, come on, you just take your time. I'll take over here. But he got his fluency in the end, didn't he? He put 86 together.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to last summer, Ollie Pope struggled a little bit against I think it was Yasir Shah, the leg spinner from Pakistan. I think against spin, he has to sit down with Joe Root, the best player that I've seen in an England jersey that can play spin. He's got Graham Thorpe as a batting coach as well in that dressing room, who's an unbelievable player of spin. I think he's a bit too frantic. I think he's a little bit too frantic when he goes out there. He's a little bit trying to desperately to get at the ball. He's dancing down, then he's trying to cut the ball, and then he's sweeping the ball. I think he can have a simpler game plan of being a little bit more efficient and a little bit not as high risk. When you see him dancing down, his feet cross over a lot, so he actually doesn't go towards the ball. He doesn't shuffle towards the ball in a nice alignment. It kind of crosses over itself, and he always looks like he's reaching out to kind of smother the delivery. It's not smooth, and I just think his mind just needs to calm down a little bit against spin. I think he can just be a little bit more controlled. I think he can trust his defence a bit better. I think he's got good defence, so he should be able to trust his defence, and just to try. And it's difficult to take a leaf out of Joe Root's book because he's that good, but I'm sure he is doing, but sit with Joe Root and just say, right, have you got anything on my game? And I bet Joe would say to him, I think we just need to calm you down a little bit. Just don't be so frantic in the way that you're manoeuvring yourself to the ball all the time. You can just play, and you're a good enough player just to relax and just bat and just kind of let the bowlers come to you. In the second innings when it's ripping and spitting, well, there's probably a chance that you have to take more of a risk to try and put the bowler under a bit of pressure. But today the ball was doing nothing, and it all felt a little bit frantic. So I think you can just calm down a bit and just slow it all down a bit and just be a little bit more simple.
And finally from you, Michael, it's England spinners tomorrow, isn't it? I mean, we talked a bit about Jimmy Anderson and what he might or might not do, but it's the spinners, isn't it? It's best Leach, bit of Root, and see how they go. Yeah, well, the runs are on the board. It's now about getting 20 wickets, 20 opportunities that they've got to create. I can't see it being like Galle, where seamers take all the wickets in one innings, the spinners in the next. I think it's going to have to be a collective. I don't see a standout bowler that's going to get 14 wickets in the match. I don't think it's going to be that kind of performance by one England bowler. It's going to be a collective. It's going to need, Dom Bess. It's going to need Jack Leach. It's going to need Jofra to rip out a couple. It's going to need Jimmy to get a bit of reverse swing. It's probably going to need a bit of wizardry from Ben Stokes. He always seems to produce something special. I think it will be a collective. And Joe Root himself, a different style of off spinner, a little bit more of a round arms, faster off spinner than Dom Bess. I think it will probably take for England to get 20 wickets and to go 1-0 up, all 6 of them just playing their part at the right time. I don't think it'll be one standout bowler. Thank you, Michael, for your company. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Michael Vaughan, part of our commentary team, of course, and our social team and our podcast authority as well. Many thanks to him. So let's get an Indian perspective now, shall we? Prakash Wakankar can join us again. Hello, Prakash. Good evening to you.
Very good evening, or good afternoon, I should say.
Well, I was doing it your way. Yes. Now then, what are people saying over there then? Because this has not really gone according to India's plan at all, is it?
No, I mean, I think the only thing that's gone awry from the groundsman that we talked about, the businessman from Tirupur, is that the wrong team, from his point of view, won the toss.
Yes.
Isn't it? I mean, 555 runs, absolutely brilliant batting from England. And what can we say about Joe Root? I don't even want to add to all the adjectives that must have been used. Unbelievable performance. And when the captain leads like that, I guess for me it's shades of 2012 when Alistair Cook had a similar kind of impact early on and carried it through the series. So good omens for England.
Yes, exactly. If the captain shows it can be done, then people follow, don't they? As they did with Cook in that case of talking about.
Absolutely. And I think you saw that. I mean, you saw that with Sibley, you saw that with Stokes, and indeed the way Dom Bess has been batting. I mean, this innings is not over by any stretch from the way I'm seeing it, except for that little, 2 or 3 over spell where Ishant got those 2 wickets. The Indian bowlers have struggled, albeit, 2 or 3 chances went down, but the 19 no balls. What do you want to say about that?
No, well, do you know that is? I'll come to that in a second. I was one more thing about Root was that I suspect of the many tributes that have been paid to him, and everybody have quite rightly said their bit. I thought one that really stood out for me was VVS Lakshman, who was such a wonderful player in that sort of situation. Someone who did bat for such a long time and was such a graceful, beautiful player. And for VVS Lakshman to really praise that innings, he said one of the best innings I think he said ever seen by a visitor to India. That's a big compliment, isn't it?
It will be. It certainly is. I mean, very, very special Lakshman. But look, I mean, I guess even someone like me, who's by no stretch of imagination an authority on this stuff, he was rock solid in defense. He was decisive in his footwork, and his stroke play was a symphony. It didn't seem to hit the ball. He was sort of maneuvering it, willing it, caressing it, use what word you will. It was just unbelievably good. Fabulous innings.
So these no balls, it is, because we've been talking about it obviously here. I mean, in the modern game, in which they've been virtually completely eradicated from one-day cricket and T20 and everything else, you hardly see a no ball bowled anymore. Isn't it bizarre? They should have bowled so many.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, either the technology that has now come in, I'm sure batsmen of the previous era must be re-looking at their averages and working out how many they would have probably scored if all the no balls had been called. But that's happening down in Pakistan as well in the test match that South Africa and Pakistan are playing. There are quite a few no balls there as well.
Of course, the problem I think was, well, one of the main problems was the umpires just didn't bother calling them anymore, and so the bowlers naturally pushed and got closer and closer over the line. We've seen over after over bowled, haven't we, in replay of no balls being bowled, and now suddenly we've got the technology. The siren goes off, echoing around the empty Chapok Stadium, which is quite exciting, and there's no escape anymore. So they're all being found out now.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things. You put in the safeguard, and technology is doing its job. So there you have it.
Now, Indian media. Let's close on that, and social media and everything else. It's obviously a gog over there. What, are there any major comments coming so far? Any criticisms? Team selections? People always like a bit of a say, don't they?
Well, I think the team selection debate sort of raged on last night, mainly about Kuldeep, and we talked about that yesterday.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are just being a little bit cautious because they don't want to sort of have egg on their face, if you know what I mean. Many still hoping that India will, bat well and put up runs on the board once they've got England all out. But I think the key is going to be a fair amount of criticism, I think, is going to be aimed towards the pitch. Now, whether it's just the curator or just the fact that maybe they didn't have enough time to prepare or whatever you want to call it. But really, I mean, if you prepare roads like this, I think Wani tweeted saying, thank you, India, for making a road. I suspect that Wani didn't think of it too well because Indian roads have enough potholes. This didn't have that either.
That's also very true, and cows roaming all over them. So they haven't quite got it like that. But it just seems to me, Prakash, that the amazing win at the Gabba wasn't long ago, and they're just having a bad game here. I mean, on every front, they're dropping catches, they're bowling no balls. They've burned off these reviews. It's just almost as if, I know Kohli wasn't there, obviously, in Brisbane, and he were desperate to try and begin this series well, but I wonder if there is a bit of a hangover from some of the players, some of the team, and they haven't really quite picked themselves up, and then they're going to have to as of tomorrow morning.
Well, they certainly will, because otherwise they're going to be very, very embarrassed. I mean, look, with scoreboard pressure, anything can happen. Clearly, the wicket is showing signs of wear today itself, though not still unplayable. And the fact is, to your point about whether there's just a sense of, I don't want to use the word complacency, but sort of a little bit of overconfidence maybe to say, all right, fair enough, England have won in Sri Lanka, but that side was not quite there. I think the reality is, if you look at the way England have kept India in the field, the longest ever, 2 full days and still counting. Yes. I think the fact is that India really will have to pick themselves up. I suspect there'll be some conversations in the dressing room after the game today about what approach to take to batting. And we'll have to see how well India are finally able to bat, because if they don't bat really well, I think England have all the ingredients in place to go 1-0 up.
This is the TMS podcast from BBC Radio 5 Live.
So let's get some reaction then. Ben Stokes has been speaking to Simon Mann.
All in all, I think we're in a very strong position as a team. For anyone else, there was no thoughts whatsoever of a declaration tonight, because that would be stupid if we won the toss and batted first. You just get as many runs as you can out here in India. And if we can bat for another hour tomorrow, we'd be very happy with that.
Is there enough in the surface? Is there enough potential reverse swing to suggest you can make it tough for India's batsmen?
I think there's actually been, there's been spin, bounce, and there's been reverse. I think we've just played really well. I think you've got to give us credit there. It's not exactly been the easiest. I think we've just given ourselves a great opportunity as batsmen to get in and score runs on a pitch that is actually offering for the bowlers. There's been a lot of balls that have spat out of the rough today, and we've seen the period today when Ishant Sharma bowled with a reverse swinging ball and got 2 and 2. That can happen out here. But yeah, I think you guys should give us a bit of credit. If we got skittled, you would have said, it's doing all sorts out here. So, I think we played really, really well as a batting unit. And we've taken some big strides as a batting group out in the subcontinent in the way that we play.
Are you expecting the pitch to deteriorate even more? So, do you feel you're in a tremendous position actually to, to go on potentially and win the game from here?
Oh, well, I think that generally wickets don't get any better out here in India, especially when the heat blazes on it and you put 90 overs a day onto it. It's going to get drier, it's going to break up, it's going to deteriorate. But just because we've gone out there and scored some big first inning runs, that doesn't give us the right to bowl them out twice like we hope to do. We know we've still got a lot of hard work to do as a bowling unit here, because it is tough to take 20 wickets anywhere, but out here, sometimes 20 wickets is hard to come by. So we know we've got a big challenge ahead of us.
How did you prepare for the series? I mean, it's very unusual to come into a test match without any cricket for 2 months and to sort of switch it on straight away. How did you make that happen?
I bowled, batted, and did a lot of running. That's pretty much it. Physically, just making sure I get myself ready for the test match, making sure I've got the workload into my body when it comes to the overs. And to be honest, now, after being around and sort of understanding what is best for my game from a batting point of view, I just made sure that I, felt good. I didn't really overkill too much, to be honest. If I felt good and felt like everything was going all right, then I'll just come out the nets. Just did a lot of running as well.
Well, there were more Englishmen in the runs today. James Vince and Liam Livingstone starring in the BBL final. Our sports extra commentary team of Alex Hartley, Stefan Schemmelt and Kevin Howells round up the action.
And so it's party night at the SCG. The title defenders, the Sydney Sixers, with a third title in 10 years of Big Bash cricket. They've beaten their main rivals over the past 10 years as well, the Perth Scorchers. The result, the winning margin, 28 runs. The scores, 188 for 6, the Sixers, after they were put into bat. The bat flip having been won by the Perth side. And in the end, the Scorchers, 160 for 9. And I have to say that at the end of it all, deserved champions, because they've just had such a terrific campaign of the Sixers and to be in front of their home crowd. We mustn't forget this whole competition, whilst things might be different with COVID, just a little bit different in Australia compared with the UK, it has still been a struggle. There have still been the bio bubbles, the security bubbles, and the players have had to get through that as well, and it means they haven't been able to play in front of the home supporters at times when they would have wanted to. That certainly has been the case of the Sixers up until the night when in front of their home crowd they can cheer on yet another victory. Both of these teams now, both the Sixers and the Scorchers, have been crowned champions 3 times over the decade, and Dan Christian lifting a 9th title of T20 domestic cricket. What a champion performer Dan Christian is. Of course, his last one was with Nottinghamshire back there in Birmingham only last October as well. So many congratulations to him on a personal level. Many congratulations also to Alex Hales, because he finishes the competition with the most runs scored, 543, but he was being pushed very close to the end by James Vince with that 95, which he scored off 60 deliveries in the final, 10 fours and 3 sixes. It wasn't to be the night in the end for Liam Livingstone. He made 45 in reply for the Perth Scorchers. Jason Roy, due to an ankle injury, unable to take his place in the final 11 for the Scorchers. It has been a competition which started a long time ago, it seems, way before Christmas. Some people will say Alex Hartley, England World Cup winner alongside me. Also got Stefan Schemmelt as well. We'll talk just briefly about the competition. Some will say the competition goes on a while. However, for me personally, I've really enjoyed it, and I think a fitting finale to see the Sixers lift the trophy this evening.
Yeah, the competition's a long one, but it always has been, and it's a fantastic competition. It's one of the best in the world for a reason. The cricket that he's played is exciting. Yes, we saw at the start that we had a few low-scoring games, but that's purely because the Australians hadn't played cricket. We've had a COVID year. It's been difficult, but yeah, it's been a fantastic competition, and the Sixers well deserved. And
your thoughts on the final this evening? James Vince, following the disappointment, heartache, heartbreak, and so much anger for some people, the way that it all finished for him, but on 98 and getting through to the final a week ago, comes back and plays a magnificent, sublime knock again.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. We hyped up the tension between him and AJ Tye, and whether there was or there wasn't, we'll never know. But Vince came out today and he proved that he deserved that 100 in the previous game. He's gone out, and it's such a shame. He looked tired tonight. He looked like he was struggling when he was in the 90s. But yeah, he was fantastic, and he really set his team, up for that win.
Your thoughts first, Stefan, on the final itself?
The best team won. The best team in the competition won. And it was just a lovely event. I think.
I agree. I totally agree. The atmosphere, the fact that it helped a little, I suppose. With all due respect to Perth, who was the Sixers in front of the home crowd, but it felt just a little bit tingly.
Definitely. And when we talk about whether or not the competition is too long or the way that it's staged or anything like that, I'm going to miss these scenes really in the dark winter morning, seeing cricket being played in the warmth in these wonderful nights at a ground like the Sydney Cricket Ground. And I just think it's been a fitting conclusion to a competition that's had its difficulties, but to see cricket back at the SCG, a sellout, not a full house, but a sellout, so many fans there, home fans in their pink shirts cheering on the Sydney Sixers, and for the Sixers to be celebrating the way that they did, they fully deserve to win the Big Bash because they have been the best team. And in winning the final, they've beaten the second best team. I don't think we could have asked for more than that. 8
teams in this competition. The top 5 qualify for that knockout chance, if you like, to go through to the final. The Scorchers made an horrific start. We thought it was going to be another tough year for them. I'd throw in the Brisbane Heat here, who almost made it through to the final. If you want to talk about the length of a competition, that's fine. But it does mean you make a dreadful start. You can come back and you can turn things around.
And you just wonder as well about, and I'm sure you'll come on to this, Kevin, but the innovations, things like the Bash Boost point and things like that, when you have made a poor start like that and you haven't won in your first 4 games as the Scorchers did, well, later on, a win is not just a win. You can win and you can pick up extra points as you go, or you can lose and still pick up points. And I think that is one of the things that has helped certainly along the way to keep the interest in the competition as it's rumbled on. As for Perth, in the way that the start that they made, I almost liken it to European football. If you get drawn away in Russia or something in a cold December night, I just wonder if teams don't like going across to the other side of Australia to make that long journey to play against Perth, if they get discombobulated doing that sort of thing. And for a long time, the Perth Scorchers, they did make the WACA their real fortress, and it's taken them a couple of years to adjust to Optus Stadium. They were, I think, the following 2 seasons after moving to Optus Stadium, they were 8th and 6th. Now they've turned those conditions in their favour, but they couldn't just get over the line in the playoff series.
Well, the scoreboard has now changed, so just confirmation, it was at 27 runs victory, not 28. These things can be important. They can be important. Alex Hales, most runs, 543, the highest score of 110. England have said, we're not interested, we're just not interested. This is starting to look a bit embarrassing, isn't it, for England? Got a World T20 coming up later in the year as well.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because there's obviously a reason. There's a fundamental reason he isn't being picked for England. Whether or not he disrupts the dressing room so much, or he has done in the past. But he's in form. He's scoring runs. He's a leading run scorer in yet another competition. No doubt he'll go off to the PSL, and he'll score more runs. It'll be fantastic. So I think something's going to have to change. The only thing in England's favour is they are winning. They are a winning side. So does Eoin Morgan want to bring someone in who they don't necessarily like? He doesn't get on with the lads. Who knows? I don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
I mean, we should stress we don't really know, do we? There's been a lot of conjecture. There's been a lot of innuendo and gossip, really, as to what's going on. We don't know, but obviously, clearly something is happening there, which Eoin Morgan has somehow, or others, have got to see over and above. I mean, you're very much, Stefan, of the opinion, look, whilst England, as Alex has just mentioned there, whilst England are winning and doing well, and they are doing well, you know, what's the issue? But there is an issue, surely.
I can see the argument of, if someone has served their time, then why not bring them back in? And we have seen England players in the recent past commit various misdemeanours. Ben Stokes, Jofra Archer, brought back at the earliest possible opportunity. Of course, I get that. But you have got players in the England team who say that the England limited overs batting lineup is one of the most difficult sporting entities to get into in the world. And England are almost looking for reasons to leave players out rather than pick them. Whatever that reason was, Alex Hales gave England a very, very good reason to leave him out. And at the moment, you can look at some of the players that can't get in. Joe Root is nowhere near the T20 side. James Vince is the second highest run scorer in this competition. He's not in the conversation. The man who probably has Hales' place in the T20 side is Dawid Malan. He's rated number 1 by the ICC as the number 1 T20 batsman in the world. Of course, Alex Hales has the talent and can play for international cricket for England, but he's given them a reason to leave him out. And from there, it's a long way back.
It didn't happen in terms of being in a winning team from Milan, but of course we mustn't forget he took part. There were a few others, and many congratulations to Jake Ball. He didn't figure in the final, but he's taken wickets and helped hear his side, the Sydney Sixers, lift the trophy this evening. Player of the match has been James Vince, of course, for his 95. A quick word about Vince, just to make sure that we've got the balance right here whilst we're concentrating on Hales and that England situation. I mean, Vince, he's always there. The frustration there is for him and us, the supporters, when it doesn't work for him in Test cricket, but with white ball.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, hasn't he? He's come out in this competition and proven himself again. Whether or not he'll get that opportunity in England's white ball squads further down the line is not for us to say, but he has put his hand up. He's there saying, I'm still here, I'm still scoring runs, and what will be, will be.
The innovations, Alex, I put a call into the ECB this week, not on the agenda at the moment in terms of any copying of it for the Blast. The innovations being, if you don't know, it was the X Factor. I mean, I'm talking to anybody listening to us, it was X Factor with the subs. The possibility of introducing a new player and swapping them after 10 overs. In the first innings, we had the Bash Boost Point, which is who's going to get most runs after 10 overs in the 2 innings. And we had 4 overs of power play, but then 2 overs of power surge, again to be taken after from the 11th over on. It caused all sorts of havoc in so many ways for people trying with the tactics. We all thought, I think, it was fascinating. I have since watched an international T20 game being played, and I have to say I miss the innovations even in the international game. I am saying, although I think there's a little bit of tweaking still maybe to be done with the X Factor side of it, and I understand that coaches won't want to be telling players that you're off after just 10 overs, but what are your thoughts?
Do you know what? At the start of the competition, I didn't like it. It was change, and I was like, it's T20 cricket, it works. But I really like it. It gives teams something to play for at the halfway stage. They've got that extra point to go for. I'm a fan, and I really like it.
Would you encourage those who have the sort of power and the influence to take a look at it that quickly to say, look, we know we've got the 100 coming up, but let's not lose focus as well on the Blast ahead of it. Say, we could do with it.
Yeah, I think each competition needs to have its own different things to make it different. So whether or not we keep the Blast as T20 cricket because we've got the 100 and the Big Bash has these innovations because they don't have anything else, I think each individual setup and competition needs to have its own little things that happen. But yeah, it's definitely worth a conversation.
Stefan, there does seem to be a real resistance from those I've spoken to, only a few, to the idea of subbing players in cricket matches. We're not used to it. And the point that's been made to me is the players are not used to it, and therefore it's a real hard job to try and get them to buy into it. I'll be very interested when the England lads come back over and speak within the dressing rooms, their own dressing rooms, and with directors of cricket and coaches as to what they made of it. But what are your thoughts?
I thought it was the only of the 3 innovations, it was the one that had least impact, but I thought potentially because it could have gone further. If you're going to have that rule where you can sub one player runner out, why has it just got to be after 10 overs of the first innings, after either one person has only bowled 1 over or not batted? Why not take it that you can have one substitute and it can be used at any time in the game? How intriguing would that be if you can bring on a bowler to bowl the last over, or you've got a batsman on the bench who can bat in the last over, in the same way that the power surge has just added that little extra dimension in the second half of an innings? If you're going to have that substitute, don't make it so restrictive, and you will find innovative and interesting ways, and the real thinkers about the game will come up with the perfect way to use that substitute. So I've got no problem with it. I would say take it even further.
Okay, moments of the tournament, or just your overall 1 or 2 sentence roundup in a moment. For me, it's going to be the catches. There were many drop ones. There were some howlers in the field. There's some howlers made by the umpires as well, in fairness, which again might see another change next year with DRS introduced to the Big Bash, and we keep stressing, I think the umpires will be amongst the biggest groups asking for it as well, because it's unfair that they have to make that decision, then we straight away can see sometimes how bad it was. They don't get that opportunity. I'm sure they would like it. That might be brought in. But for me, despite all the drop catches, I think it was Ben Lachlan taking a fantastic one-handed diving catch to get rid of Jonathan Wells. I just thought that was breathtaking. In the wrong hand as well. We do see players diving around, but it was the fact he was running, it was the timing of the jump to get to the catch and everything. I just thought it was absolutely magnificent. Alex Hartley, your moment or your overall overriding thought?
Mine was the Spiceman, Fletcher, from the Stars, finally getting the runs that he was longing to get for. You know, we saw him take brilliant catches for the Stars, and he finally got that. I think it was 80 odd in the end, and he came off the field and he was hugging Glenn Maxwell and he was in tears. Like, you could just see how much that meant to him. So for me, that was my moment of the tournament. That's
such a good call. That was a real human moment, wasn't it, of motion. And we later found out that Brian Lara had spoken to him. He was over there, Lara, for the TV coverage. He'd spoken to him on the phone the day before or something. Next thing we know, he's off playing T10, but never mind. Stefan?
Short answer would be anything that Dan Christian has done. The long answer would be just seeing crowds in cricket stadiums enjoying the game on warm evenings, and it's just really whetted my appetite for what could hopefully come this summer. And make no mistake about it, so many years ago when there was talk about the clamour for a new limited overs domestic competition in England, it was the Big Bash where the games administrators were looking. It wasn't the IPL, it was the Big Bash that was the inspiration. And it may not always be a popular opinion, but it really whet my appetite for the 100. Don't worry about what's come before, maybe the errors that have been made by those people organising that competition. Just know that when the quality of those cricketers get together, it will be an excellent competition, and this is the sort of thing that the English game wants to recreate. Whether or not you think it could have been done with the Blast is almost irrelevant now. It's coming, and hopefully it can be something like this.
And finally, you can follow the third day's play in Chennai on the BBC Sport website and the app with the Cricket Social available worldwide from 6:30 a.m. Here's a sample of the sort of thing you can enjoy. This is Micah Vaughan and Dan Norcross quizzing Phil Tufnell about when he dismissed Sachin Tendulkar.
Did Sachin get given out LBW
I got him
in
LB.
India?
I got him LB. I got him LB, Mike. I got him LB. Yes, I got him LB. Yes, on 9, I think it was.
Who was the umpire? Was it an English umpire?
It was a chap called Mindu Philip Park or something.
Oh, is it the Philip thing? Is it
Mindu Philip? I can't remember.
Mindu Philip Park.
It's something like that. And I tell you what was quite strange, actually.
Was it out, Phil?
Yes, it was out, Mike. But I'll tell you, it was. It just skidded on, hit him on the back foot, lovely piece of bowling. But it was quite funny because the
how many did he get, by the way?
He got 9. He got 9.
9? You got him? Did him early?
I did him early, thankfully. But the chaps who gave it out, the umpire, his finger that he used to give it out with, it looked like it had been flattened in a door. It looked like a table tennis bat. It looked like it shut it in the door.
So you couldn't see it?
No, it was like a big sort of. It had like a big paddle. Yes, his finger was like a paddle.
Like on Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah.
1 point.
Oh, you got him for 9.
Yes, it looked like a massive paddle. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, it shut it in a door or something, but it had been flattened at the end. And when you saw the paddle.
I'm going to get that on YouTube. I'm having a look for that. I want to see the paddle finger.
Go on, have a look at the paddle
I'm going to get YouTube up.
I've got Sachin's career stats up in front of me. LBW Tufnell in Mumbai, 1993 for 78. Not 9, but not
78. It wasn't 78.
How have you conveniently forgotten 69?
I thought it was single figures.
Well, it might have felt like it based on how that series went. That was as good as a single figure score for England, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Was it 78?
How many times did you get him out, Phil?
I think I only got him out the once. Yeah, that was it.
That'll do. So I'm just YouTubing.
Was it really?
I've got the search
Andy,
engine.
Was it really
Phil
78?
Tufnell getting
how the memory fades.
Well, fades. It
was 9 away from 100. That's probably what. Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't even that.
No, 22 away from 100. It's hard to know where 9 came in.
How
really.
fun is that? I thought I had him out for single figures. Oh well, don't worry.
had India teetering at 368 for 3 as well.
Yes, well, there you go. We were on top that game.
Maybe he'd just hit 9 off you in that over. Maybe that's what it was.
Well, it felt like a success for him not to get 100.
Gentlemen, I've got the clip.
Go on.
I've got the clip.
I've got the clip. Let me just get to it again because it's quite difficult. I've got it. It's a very good piece of bowling, Phil. By the way, Sachin about 12 at the time.
He was about 12. He was a young man.
18, I think.
Yeah, he was pretty good at that age, even then.
Oh, Phil, look how disappointed you. He's got Tendulkar out.
I was exhausted, Mike.
But he got him out for 9 as well, hadn't he? And what was disappointing was he looked up the score.
He got 78. How did that happen?